Okay, Frank Sinatra sings Slash. Stay with me now, let's get high. No, that's not good. That's not a good Frank Sinatra. Hey! What you doing out there? Greetings, everyone. As you can see, I'm having a little fun learning the new video editing software. Um, anyway, welcome to this week's art appreciation. And this time I'm going to give you just a brief history of my growth into the passion for photography that I have, and show you a few early examples, and then, well, actually one early example when I was a kid, and then show you a few examples a little bit later, and then show you some of the stuff that I've been doing most recently. So anyway, without further ado, I'll start by showing you this first image, which is see, I've always kind of had a passion for photography, even when I was a kid. I remember my first camera was a Honeywell Pentax that my dad gave me, and so I took that camera and just used it as my outlet. And so this first image here is kind of one of my first attempts to be creative with the camera. And I'd always kind of had this, I'd get that camera in my hand, and I just, it would fill me with excitement to, okay, what can I do with this? How can I express visually myself, with this camera? So this is my first attempt at being creative with the camera. That may give you a little bit of insight into my craziness a little bit. Okay, so and that was when I took this picture, I suppose I was preteen age. Okay, so, and then let's see here. So that kind of gives you a little bit about how I started being interested in photography. And then a little bit later, after I graduated from high school and I had worked a few years, I joined the Navy and became a photographer's mate for the Navy. And so let's see, this next image I am going to show you is an image of Tom Normando and I. This is a shot of he and I in Tijuana. He and I ended up stationed together, or not together, but stationed at the same time. Actually, he was already out. Tom Normando was the guy that really taught me how to be a photographer. Plain and simple, he and I were stationed together on the USS Blue Ridge back in the late '80s. I went to the Blue Ridge in '87, late 1987, and and while I was there, he taught me a lot. Tom was very generous about teaching us youngsters how to, and not only how to, be a photographer, but how to be passionate about it, how to love it, how to, just enjoy it. So I really appreciate Tom's mentoring me, and that, that passion that he had rubbed off on me. He was an outstanding photographer, still is an outstanding photographer. But it really sparked my attention when I saw some of his, what he had done with the camera. So thought I'd share that one. Now this next one here is a image of me at the Peace Park, and the Peace Park is a site near ground zero of the atomic bomb dropping in Hiroshima. And the building you see me photographing is called the A-bomb dome. And the A-bomb dome is so named because at the dropping of the bomb, this building was very close to ground zero. And as you can see, it's still standing. And so in the aftermath, they built a memorial for the tragedy, the tragic event, and they called it Peace Park. And the park was built around the A-bomb dome. So that's me photographing the A-bomb dome. And let's see, next here, here's these are just kind of a few sample pictures that I have picked out to show in this video. This is during a trip to Busan, South Korea, and what we would typically do when we were on the when we would moor at a port of call, we would go out and just photograph street photography style, and so this is a good example of a street photography shot in Busan, South Korea. And I love these kids. These kids were just so focused on what I was doing, and they just had the greatest expressions on their face. I was down and trying to pose, trying to get just the right angle, and and those kids would just stand there and just kind of follow me, and I think it was just this childish, this childlike curiosity, that this person, that doesn't fit into the crowd in South Korea was pointing at a camera, and kids don't, they don't have the same filter that adults do, so they're just very curious, but it made for a great photograph, and so I thought I'd include it here. Let's see, the next Navy photograph here is of me and a Chinese sailor swapping covers, as they say, for a photo opportunity. This was an historic trip to Shanghai, China in 1989, and if you think about your history a little bit, you'll remember that 1989 was when the Tiananmen Square incident happened. Well, we had moored in Shanghai in 1989, just before the incident, and when we left, they had began the crackdown, and it kind of left me thinking that they must have been waiting for us to leave. But when we were in Shanghai, these people were just very friendly. They were, very willing to shake hands and start a conversation. As hard as that might have been, because or at least in Shanghai when we were there, no one spoke English, and obviously, we're not up on our Chinese, so it was hard to communicate. But it was really, I really enjoyed the that interaction of those very different cultures coming together, and so that was really a great moment. Okay, so anyway, that was in the Navy was where I really was able to get my find my visual voice, as you would say in photography. And I think that Edward Weston is kind of the guy I associate with. Well, and Bill Brandt. Bill Brandt was, as we were talking about in the other video, just the kind of guy that would say, don't worry about the process, just worry about the final image, and is the final image impactful. And fine art photography has kind of always been the interest that I was, trying to create. When it comes to photography, you've got so many different ways of utilizing photography. You've got journalism, you've got, police evidence photography, you've got wedding photography, you've got, there are just so many different ways to use photography. And my passion has always been in just fine art photography. In other words, creating an image that would look interesting on a wall. Okay, so and Edward Weston, I believe, was just that great hero of that passion, that path in photography was just fine art photography. Okay, so let's see here. What would be next in my? Let's see. The Denver shots would be last. Next would be my creation of the image entitled Windy, I believe. And Windy, I'm including this in this video because Windy was selected to be displayed in the 2010 National Juried Art Show at Baker Arts here in Liberal, Kansas. And I basically, one of the things that I started doing when I got the job here in Liberal and I moved down here was I started playing around in Photoshop with images and just experimenting. And one day I was experimenting with this photograph of a windmill that I had taken, a windmill that's just as you are entering into the small town of Ensign, Kansas. As I travel back and forth between Hays and Liberal, Ensign is one of the small towns that I pass through, and there is this windmill that's just right there along the highway, and I one day just decided to pull over and take some pictures. And then later, as I was experimenting with these images of the windmill in Photoshop, I accidentally, serendipitously ended up with Windy, the windmill monster. And so you can see all kinds of things going on in this. I call it a digital art image. It's no longer a photograph, it's a digital art image. Okay, next, let's talk about the illusion of time. Actually, the illusion of time is, I should have talked about that first because that image was captured before Windy was. And the illusion of time was an image that I captured in Abilene when I was working out of Abilene, Kansas. And there was a park in Abilene that had this clock. And again, after I had captured this image in Abilene, I got to messing around with it and just experimenting in Photoshop, and ended up with this image. And the illusion of time is an image that was selected for display in the 2012 5-state photography show in Hays, Kansas. And so I was kind of glad to have that entered. When I printed this thing, it just really printed really nicely. Okay, next I better move along so this doesn't take too awful long here. Where are we at? Next I will talk about a couple black and white images that I captured of the Kansas landscape. And this was just, these two images were captured just after I had purchased my new Canon 60D, EOS 60D. Love that camera. Great camera. Captures great images. I really, my first digital camera was an Olympus, and it was an 8 megapixel camera. So when I bought the Canon, it was an upgrade from an 8 to an 18 megapixel. So I was really happy with that upgrade of quality, and not only with the quality of the size of the sensor, but also the quality of the optics. I think Canon has really done a good job of embracing the digital age, and their digital cameras are amazing. At least that's been my experience anyway. Okay, and the next one is titled Bridges, and this is a scene that I found as I was driving. Sometimes I take a trip from Liberal to Ashland. Ashland's where my parents live, and I'll drive over to Ashland and spend the evening with them. And as I was driving one time, I noticed this scene as I was going from Bede to the 160 turnoff, and so I had to stop. I saw that bridge, and it's like, okay, I've got to stop and get that. And that's kind of the thing that I love about photography is, when you know, of course you got to have your camera with you, but you're always looking for these scenes that you can. Oh, I got to stop. I got to get that. So and I stopped, and I had it was not really the best place to pull off the highway, and so I had to find me a nice place to pull off. So I was off the road so people wouldn't run me over, and then it took me about 15-20 minutes to walk back to where this was and get the right angle for the right photograph to show the two bridges, the bridge that's half buried into the ground and then the bridge in the background. Okay, so next, let's show the crossing. So we'll show the crossing. This is, and I would consider this a street photograph. Of course, and it's not a photograph again. It's a digital art image because obviously, it starts out with a photograph, but then I have taken a lot of creative license with the image in Photoshop, as you can see. But I still kind of consider, because when I captured this image, basically what I had done is I put my tennis shoes on and grabbed my camera and just started walking and looking for photographs. And that's what I consider street photography. A lot of times when you look at street photographs, street photography, this is in the city. This is the images of these city scenes with a lot of people, but I'm in western Kansas, and it's not the city scene, but it's still the same concept. It's still the same concept of you just going out, walking the streets, and capturing images from your walkabout. Okay, next, turbines and fog, and actually this is an image of some wind turbines that I pass by as I commute back and forth from Hays to Liberal. This is from the turbine farm near Montezuma, Kansas, and as I was driving to Liberal one Monday morning, it was foggy, and I had to stop and capture some of these turbines in the fog because the light, the morning light, early morning light, and the fog just made for a great scene. And as I was editing this image in Photoshop, when I would apply certain color filters or whatever, you can see the effect that it had on the fog, and so it the color shifts as you see the blades of the turbine shifts in color as you go down, and those are as a result of the fog that morning. And so when I printed this, it really printed nicely, and I actually have sold this image a couple times, so I'm very happy about that. So thank you for those people who have purchased that. I love this photograph, and I'm glad that you like it too. Okay, next. Where are we at? There's a couple images left that I want to show from downtown Denver when Mary and I traveled to Denver one weekend to visit. Amanda was living in Denver at the time, and so we went to visit Amanda. But while we were there, Mary and Amanda go shopping, and I went downtown to walk about downtown Denver and capture some of the city scenes in Denver. And so this first one is entitled Forest for the Trees, and I've printed this one in a 20 by 40 with an aluminum frame, and it is absolutely a wonderful print. The colors are very rich. And the second scene, I don't know if I really have a title for this, but I think it's a great image. Maybe call it Windows. I'll call it Windows. And there's actually a lot of, I kind of had a hard time picking out just 3 of these. But this third one here is called Wandering Windows. And when I saw this building, I knew exactly what I wanted to do with it. I didn't really know the colors that I wanted to apply, and so that was kind of experimental when I got into Photoshop with this image. But I knew I wanted to, wave those, warp those windows. So, okay, so there's that. There's my little collection of images and sort of a little bit of a history of me in my pursuit of the creative image with the camera. So thanks for viewing, and I'll check you out later.